Hey everyone, welcome to another live video. What I'm talking about today is sensory seeking behavior in kids. So if you're a parent of a kid who is sensory seeking, you probably know what I'm talking about. They crave that additional sensory input. So they might always be touching something. They might like certain textures to touch. They may even put things in their mouth. They might be just super loud all the time. So they're always making, more noise. It's like they don't have like an inside voice, and they're always just being very loud. They might always be moving. So like they're jumping off the couch, they're bouncing off the walls. They might always smell something or like certain smells, and they're always seeking out different sensory inputs. And the reason for that is that our brain actually really craves input. It has to have input, or otherwise it will get stressed out. So the reason that they're seeking additional input is because their brain's probably not getting enough input by itself. And one of the biggest things that gives our brain input is actually our muscle and our muscle spindles and our muscle tone. So the stronger muscle tone that we have, the stronger core that we have, the more tone we have throughout our body in our muscles, the more feedback is going to go to our brain. So our muscle spindles are always sending our brain input and information. So it's basically telling where our body's at in space. So it's something called proprioception. So for instance, if I can't see my hand, but it's behind my head, but I still know exactly where it's at, because our muscles are always sending input to our brain so that we know where we're at in space. So for kids that are always looking for extra sensory input, or making loud noises, or always wanting to touch something or taste something or smell something, it's in part because they usually have weak muscle tone. So they have lower muscle tone. They might look like floppy. They may not have a strong core. They fatigue out really fast in a chair and start slumping. And if they have that low muscle tone, they're not going to be getting the amount of input to the brain that they need. So then the way that they supplement it is by seeking out additional sensory input so that their brain's not getting stressed out. So that's kind of the gist of where I start looking at for kids that have sensory seeking behavior is what's their muscle tone like? Is their muscle tone, is their muscle spindles giving their brain enough input to not be stressed out, so then they don't have to seek out that additional sensory input? So that's kind of the calming effect that input has on the brain. So muscle tone's not like the only thing that can cause that. That's just a huge thing that I see in sensory seeking kids is they have low muscle tone. So that's the place that I kind of start looking at. But I mean, it can be a number of different things. It can be just an inflammation overload on their brain. It could be that they still have primitive reflexes. It could be that their vestibular system is not balanced. But a lot of the times it is a huge component is the muscle tone. They have low muscle tone that's not feeding enough sensory input to the brain. So then they start doing sensory seeking behaviors of other things. So that is what I start with when looking for sensory seeking kids. But of course, the only real way to know that is just by doing an examination, and that's where I run through everything from A to Z to see what possible things could be contributing to their sensory seeking behaviors. And I can do that in the office, but also if you live out of state or far away, I've also made an at-home examination form where I basically explain step by step everything that I would look for in the office, and then you can actually look for it at home and then send me the results, and then I'll be able to interpret it for you. So that's what I have for you today is if your child is sensory seeking and they're always, whether it's touching things or very loud or smelling things or always moving and they always seem to be craving sensory input, if they have low muscle tone, that could definitely be contributing to it because their brain's not getting enough input from their muscle spindles. So I hope that helps some of the parents out there. If you have any questions, always feel free to direct message me or call the office. Our number is 402-504-4676. All right, have a good one, guys.